Let's wait for Sarah. Okay, so let me just do that. Just a really warm welcome to each and every person in this Zoom room meeting today. I know on the flyer that we use the word, one of the words, we're celebrating the publication of Alison and Pamela's amazing book. But I just want to say I'm feeling there's a celebration of, as I said just now, it feels like an old class reunion of all the different courses and the cycles. And I'm seeing Linda's also smiling. I'm seeing all these faces of people we haven't seen for a while. So I feel the celebration is not just of the book, but of all the work that's been done in AMISA on all the different trainings over the years. So yeah, it's wonderful to have you here. So before I hand over to Gugu to do a little bit of a landing in the space, I really want to extend I'm delighted to welcome Alison to join us. I've known Alison for many years, I think since 2019, and she's been an amazing support for mindfulness-based supervision, kind of especially in the UK, but also around the world, and very much so for us here in South Africa at AMISA, which we'll hear a little bit more just now. And she's a supervision lead for Mindfulness Network in the UK, amongst other things. And together with Pamela, where's Pamela, if you want to put up your hand, co-authored this amazing book, which I have to say, here it is. I've read from cover to cover, and I've absolutely loved it. It's a skillful, beautifully created, crafted book of warmth, compassion, wise counsel, research-based kind of work, and into the full field of mindfulness-based supervision and what is required in the field today, looking at all the challenges that we've been faced with trauma and in making sure things are inclusive and affordable. And I really, for all teachers and supervisors and mentors, for me, this is like essential. But Alison's going to share a little bit about the book with us today, and then I'll let you know a little bit about what's happening with supervision and mentoring in South African context. And then Gugu is joining us, who's currently a teacher on our new training, Sharing Mindfulness in Context, as also a mentor on the program. So we'll be having a conversation around supervision, and then we'll be going into some small groups and large groups and just questions, and just having a time of being together in a space that's warm and kind, but also a space that we can question and challenge and explore together. And so with that, I'd like to hand over to Gugu to lead us in a very short landing practice.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Barbara. I'd like to invite us all to come to a comfortable posture. I see we're all seated. So just really taking an intentional seat, be it on the cushion, the couch, the chair. And once you're settled, perhaps gently closing your eyes or softening your gaze. With the flow of the breath, feeling into the sensation of the feet on the ground. The bum on the seat. And perhaps allowing your awareness to travel up the trunk of the body, meeting with the shoulders. Perhaps rolling the shoulders up, back, and down. Noticing what that feels like in the body. And gently drawing your awareness to the face. Seeing if you can soften the facial muscles. Relaxing the eyebrows. Softening the jaw. And allowing the tongue to rest in the mouth. And gently drawing your awareness to the natural flow of the breath. Meeting with this breath in this moment as it is. When you're ready, gently drawing your gaze to the screen. Making light contact with each face, each name. Perhaps offering a gentle smile as we all arrive in this shared virtual room. We are here. Welcome to each one of us. With that, I'd like to hand over to Alison, who will take us through her lovely presentation. Alison, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara, Gugu, and everyone here. Delighted to be here. And yeah, there are a few of you I've met online, and there are some of you I've met in person, which is really lovely to see. I met Sarah in Hong Kong a couple of months ago, and I've met Barbara. And it's a warm day in the UK. So we've had unusually about 30 degrees day today. So if I get pinker and pinker as the session goes on, it's because I'm up in an attic and it's quite hot up here. So before we began, we just had a little sit and just tuned into our intentions for being here this evening. And I guess a couple of things came to mind for me. One is an intention to share something of my love of supervision and mentoring with you all. And I often think that supervision is something that easily gets forgotten. It's a little bit like the poor relative at times. So there's something around being able to speak a little bit and share something about it with you. And yeah, inviting you to get curious and interested in your experience of supervision and mentoring. I have got some slides and I'm going to speak for the ideas around 15 minutes, and then we're going to move a little bit more into conversation, the three of us with each other, around supervision and mentoring. So there'll be some more sharing in that form. So my slides, I haven't got lots of slides, and what I have got will be shared with you. So no need to be taking notes or anything. Let me just get my screen share up. Just checking, can you see that all right, Barbara?
Yeah,
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the cover of the book, as Barbara was showing you earlier. So it's been out a couple of months now, and it's been I guess many years in the making. I would say at least 12 years in the making, but probably longer than that. So there's something in capturing some of what we've got in the book in order to share something as supervision. And maybe the first thing is just in terms of the title. So we decided to call it not just mindfulness-based supervision, but to add in the mentoring, because we are aware in some countries and contexts, mentoring is the term that's used for supervision, but also that we want this to have a broad application. So we sort of see the way that we are describing this framework, this way of being in dialogue with another is really important. And we were very keen to get this subtitle in. The publishers weren't so keen, but Pamela and I really wanted. So this sense of describing it as an embodied dialogue, and really this sense of it supporting learning and reflection. And I guess these are some of the things I would say, in essence, are what I would describe mindfulness-based supervision as. So I'll probably tend to just use the term mindfulness-based supervision from now, just because that's often easier and what tends to roll off my tongue. So here's a picture of Pamela and myself. So Pamela, as you know, is with us tonight. So this is us just after the book was published, and Barbara's very keen that this is called a celebration. Well, this was one of our moments of celebration. So you can sort of maybe see there's a hint of relief of all the hard work that's gone in there, and yeah, a moment to enjoy this in Pamela's garden with a cup of tea, of which we had many during the writing process. So I'm the one speaking, but really I'm speaking from both of us and the work that we put into the book. And I'm also speaking and thanking many people who've kind of been creating this work over the years. So I won't go into naming everyone. We name a lot of people in the book, but it's been this long-term creation that has involved many other people and many institutions who have supported this work. So this is not just mine and Pamela's, it's many people's work. So what we do in the book is we kind of center the book around this framework that we've developed for mindfulness-based supervision. And I know some of you here will know this framework from your own experience as supervisors. For some of you, it might be a little newer. We also use this metaphor of the warp and weft. So some of you might well have read the paper that Becca Crane and John Kabat-Zinn and others wrote around the warp and weft of mindfulness-based programs. And this idea, it's a metaphor that comes from weaving. So this idea that warp threads are the essential aspects that need to be there. And the weft are the threads that get woven in and can be sort of changed, and different directions, different materials, different colors. And what we have in our diagram, I'm just going to describe it a little bit in our framework, is three aspects to what we think are essential to mindfulness-based supervision. You know, the real bit that makes it mindfulness-based. And we have these. This sort of outer circle here that we call the container of mindfulness. And this would really be what all of supervision is infused with. So we've got qualities like compassion and wisdom. We've got the intentionality that's always coming into supervision. We've got this embodied presence, so really that everything in supervision is practice underlies it, it's embodied, it's in the moment, it's present moment. And this real link with integrity for the programs, for the work, integrity within the relationship. So we feel that there's this sort of container of mindfulness that is always there in supervision. And then we have I'm going to come to the center now. So we sort of see the center of supervision being around a mutual inquiry. So we're really keen that the word mutual is there. So it's about two people collaborating, dialoguing, exploring together. And it has that similar sort of process of inquiry that we might know from our teaching mindfulness-based work, that brings this spirit of curiosity, of wondering, of not knowing within it. So this container, the mutual inquiry, and then very important, this space. So when we first developed the framework, we didn't have the word space written in there, and we thought it was such an important aspect to supervision that we needed to name it. So really by space, it can be many, many things. It might be that it's practice that comes into supervision, a moment of a pause. It can be the space just in terms of the slowing down, the pausing, the reflecting, the slower speech. It might be a space for movement. It's also the space that we create, this space in our diaries, this time to come together. There are many ways that space feels like a really integral part of supervision. We name all of these aspects as the warp of mindfulness-based supervision and mentoring, really what we would kind of hope would be there. And then we see other aspects of supervision that are a little bit more like the weft, that they are there, but they're not always there, and they might vary on different settings, different contexts. So if I kind of come first of all to this sort of darker blue ring that in our model we call the belt. So these are sort of frameworks that support something around standards, around integrity, that we can draw upon and lean into in supervision. So one is the sort of contracting of the supervision space. And then another one is around good practice. So, really how, and I think we'll keep coming back to this evening, really how supervision is a real important part of good practice in the field, and how having good practice guidelines, being able to lean into them, can be a very important part of our work. Competency, sometimes we might lean into competency frameworks like the MBI TAC, for example, or the variations, or on training courses, there might be other sorts of competencies that we're referring to. And these two are newer ones, so they weren't in the original models, but I think really important. So all of the different frameworks around safety that can be very crucial to supervision. So trauma-informed frameworks and theories, psychological safety. So really important that safety is part of what's created, both in the session, but also in terms of people's work. And the other one that we really wanted to name that was always in the framework but never named directly was around all sorts of frameworks that are around, not just in the mindfulness field, but outside of the mindfulness field, that encourage inclusive practice, that encourage us to work with diversity in ways that are non-harming. So really wanting to name a lot of these kind of things that really support with integrity in our work. And then the final bit of the framework that I haven't spoken about yet is these petals here. So these are the areas where we might say like the content of what a supervisee or a mentee is bringing to supervision. And again, we've made some changes here. So we have this context now, and context is really vast and also includes, very importantly, cultural context. So again, it's something we're naming throughout the book, all the way through the importance of cultural context within supervision. Theory and understanding that can include like a whole range of theories and understandings, right through from if somebody's teaching a program, kind of right through to more social models of understanding. Personal mindfulness practice, we always feel it's really important to name that. Supervisees and mentees don't always know that they can bring their practice to supervision. We've got the whole area around group and individual processes. So again, you can imagine like things like safety would come in here, around how to work in inclusive ways, how to work with particular, clinical applications. So just lots and lots of ways that this might come into supervision. And another really important change we've made is it used to be very much around mindfulness-based teaching for courses, and we've really changed this now and named it around mindfulness-based work, right through from early working mindfulness, beginning to share practices, might include teaching programs, might include some quite different sort of one-to-one work. And then as people are in the mindfulness field for longer, it might include supervision, training. So really this sense of supervision being like a lifelong journey for all your different mindfulness-based work. Just coming a little bit to some sort of summaries here. So yeah, it's really hard to sort of put it all into sort of a few points, but some of the things that Pamela and I were really wanting to include that we felt need to be incorporated into these conversations and the dialogue and practice of supervision is this bringing in context and culture all the way through, the real emphasis on safety, diversity and inclusion, this changing nature of mindfulness-based work. As many of us who've been in the field a little while, we really know how much it is changing. And really supervision being a place to reflect on good practice and ethics. So I really struggled to kind of think about some of the key insights about MBS from writing the book, but these are what I sort of came up with. One is that it's the walk that makes it mindful. So, there are many forms of supervision, but they don't have all of those aspects of the walk. And that's often the bit I think we feel when we're in supervision, either as supervisor or supervisee. It's the bit we go away with is often those aspects of the walk. Mindfulness practice is really at the heart of all of the work, including supervision. So for me, I can really see the link with my practice and being a supervisor. And I really feel that supervision is a mindfulness practice in itself. So when I'm in supervision, either as a supervisee or a supervisor, it feels like a practice. So we would suggest that MBS is core to holding the integrity of the work we will do. This way of checking in with someone periodically, taking our questions, taking our wonderings, somebody helping us to see blind spots, places we're not seeing, asking sometimes difficult questions, supporting us to sustain our well-being. So really seeing it as an important part of integrity. And also just the way, we are continually learning, and supervision is a way of supporting that learning. So as we're continually learning, we continually need supervision, but maybe in slightly different ways, slightly different forms, different supervisors, letting our supervision evolve with us as we start to evolve in our work. So it's not static, it's not stuck. And I really strongly feel that the field is evolving and changing. So supervision needs to keep relevant. It needs to keep up to date. It needs to be open to change. So we've written this book, as things are now, as we understand things from our perspective. And I hope by naming some of the ways the framework has already changed gives you a sense of how, we've really got that openness that it will change and it will evolve. And as people take it into different contexts, different cultures, they will make it their own. It will change. It might look a little bit different. So a little reminder. So Barbara's going to send this round as well, sort of around the book and the details of where to get the book. And also just to say, Pamela and I, having our intention with this book was to, put this work out into the world, but not as a complete book of, set in stone. We'd love to hear from people. We'd love to keep connecting. We're both on LinkedIn. And also just to let you know, we have got a book study group coming up soon. So we're going to have 4 online meetings, a chance to read the book, come together in conversation over a sort of 4 or 5 month period, and I'll let you know more about that. I think I'm about there with my time. And I think we will be kind of drawing more of those things out when we come to the conversation now.
Well, thank you, Alison. Thank you. And as Alison said, she is going to make the slides available to us, and I'll send that forward to you. Actually, Lynn will, as Lynn does all those things for us. So thank you for that, Alison. And I'd like to just spend a few moments just talking about supervision in the South African context. And I'm aware that the participants that we've got this evening, we've got a group of supervisors and we've got some mentors, but we've also got some teachers here. So, so for me, it's really important that what we're doing here is both for supervisors and mentors, but also as teachers of mindfulness, what is available for you and how can you get supported. So because most of the work we've been doing in South Africa has been with regards to supervision and mentoring is basically on our formal training. And so the intention of our coming together, and I'll share with you towards the end of the evening, what are the plans going forward to support those people who have already finished their formal training, both on the 2-year program, what Stellenbosch and Amisa, as well as now the new program of sharing mindfulness in context, and of course, future trainings. So a little bit of history. Back in 2015, on cycle 2 of the 2-year Stellenbosch and Amisa program, there was a need to actually bring supervision in to support participants that were actually starting to teach a mindfulness-based program for the first time. And during that time, our dear friend and colleague Trish Luck, where she is, there she is in her green jersey, have a wave, Trish. She actually really started coordinating and supporting the first supervisors. And I was one of those supervisors that she supported. And so was Janine and a few other people here. And if I'm not mistaken, Trish, you actually joined one of the training with Alison and Cindy Cooper, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in 2016. And so really, thank you, Trish, for really championing supervision in South Africa in the early days. And I was the lucky one when Trish moved over to the States to step into her shoes and take over the supervision lead. And from that time, we realized that as our training grew and the more challenges that we were faced, not only in South Africa, but worldwide, in terms of becoming more aware of trauma, diversity, the more need for inclusivity, we felt that the supervisors needed a more formal training. And that's when, after Becca Crane was with us in 2019 at our 17 in our was it 19 in our conference, she put me in touch with Alison, who championed supervision in the UK. And from that day, and I just want to share with you some slides here. It's good at this. Gosh, where have I got? So what's happened? Oh, sorry, there's just a bit of a mistake here. One moment. Gosh, I'm not sure what's happened here. So just bear with me. I'm not sure what's happened to my slides. Yeah, we had them just now. Here we go. No, I don't know what's happening here. Okay.
Do you maybe just need to go back, Barbara?
Okay.
Back a slide.
No, it's not doing it.
No, okay.
Just let's see, stop share. We did it earlier on. We got it up here. Just let me try one. Okay, you know what? Okay, there we go. I think we'll do this now. Okay. Okay. This is the worst nightmare when you're doing online things. We'll just try one more time, but if it doesn't work out, then that's fine. Okay, I think we're there. I think we're there. There we go. Yeah. Okay. So are we all on? Can you see that slide? So it's just real acknowledgement that the support that we've received both from Alison at the Mindfulness Network in the UK, as well as Bangor University from Beckett Crane, and of course of MISA. It was been a collaborative effort in which we've worked at adapting the training that both Trish and I went on in different times to the South African context, where we actually made it into a modular format. And over the years, we started the training in 2020. And since then, supervision and mentoring has been really deeply embedded in all our formal training, starting with a 2-year Stellenbosch University and MISA program. Going on now, we use mentoring into the sharing mindfulness in context. And the plan is that to embed supervision and mentoring into all future training. There's a slight distinction for us in supervision and mentoring. The supervision is supervising people to train an actual program, a mindfulness program. And mentoring is when we mentor people in their own personal practice and then how to share short practices with others. So that's how we delineate between the two. And then after we'd trained supervisors and supervisors had been supervising on the 2-year program, we went and in keeping with good practice, we evaluated the training and the supervision that we had embarked on. And just to share that from quite a large sample of both supervisees and supervisors, the overall experience of a mindfulness-based supervision was that it was a caring, supportive, reflective space. People appreciated the wise counsel that they received in the supervision that was infused with kindness and non-judgment. And people really saw this as a time of growth, both personally as well as a teacher. And the experience was that supervision based on the mindfulness practice is a safe place or relatively safe place to explore different possibilities. And it's not always easy. It's quite challenging at times, both because we have all blind spots and, our own patterns come up when we're teaching or sharing mindfulness. So really, it's a space in which we can be challenged, but in a healthy, supportive way. Okay. And so I'll talk about the future plans a bit towards the end of the time together. So if that's just in essence a little bit about what's been happening in South Africa. And we're now going to kind of just go into a time of conversation between Gugu, Alison, and myself, and we're each going to kind of get a chance to ask the three of us questions, and we're going to have a brief conversation before we spend some time together in small groups, seeing how things land for you or any questions that you may have. So, Gugu, I'm going to hand over to you.
Hey, thank you, Barbara. And yeah, I think as Barbara mentioned, this is just an opportunity to converse, ask a few questions, hear more about each other's experiences. So we don't actually know the answers to the questions yet, but we do know some of the questions. And my first question to Alison and Barbara is, how has your overall experience been with supervision?
Barbara, do you want to start or shall I?
Over to you, Alison.
Yeah. So we knew these questions in advance, and this is a really hard one because there's so much I could say here. And the word that first came up to me was essential. So there's something around my overall experience as I look back over the years, is it's been really essential to my work. And how my overall experience, it's been very different. So it's because I've had different supervisors and I take different things to supervision. So the actual sort of range of what supervision has been able to offer me is really quite wide, from sometimes quite practical sort of resourcing and help through to at times really coming into very vulnerable spaces and really being able to explore quite deeply something that's happening for me, often on an ongoing basis over several supervisions. And I guess I guess I feel like I take the supervision I receive really seriously. So there's a sense I feel it's like an ethical act. But it's also an act of self-care and an act of really supporting that part of me that's curious and gets inspired and wants to learn. So it feels something that's deeply important in many ways in my life. And I would say I'll give Barbara a chance. So just one other thing is that I generally really look forward to supervision and that bit that Barbara just pointed to. And sometimes it's challenging. So sometimes, and also if I'm quite busy, I will sometimes have that tendency to look for spaces in my diary and almost think I could cancel supervision and never do, thank goodness, because it would be so easy at times to think other things are more important. And then I leave it thinking, oh, thank goodness I went to supervision. There's something that's been useful and that I've learned. But yeah, those are some of the things that were sort of going through my mind in relation to this question. How about you, Barbara?
Yeah, no, thanks, Alison. I'd just like to pick up on about, you mentioned the word self-care, and I kind of, one of the first things I thought was it's a radical act of self-care, and it's a space for me that I'm finding deeply nourishing when I'm in supervision. And I've also had supervision with different supervisors over the years, and I, like you, Alison, have found just it's essential process for me in terms of my work that I do. And what I find also in the supervision, it just gives me time to pause and to breathe with somebody that is has walked the path actually ahead of me, and has a wealth of experience and knowledge and wisdom and a willingness to share that with me. And I kind of see it also as quite an organic process. And for me, my experience is that when I first started in supervision, it was kind of quite more directive, and I needed to know this and what do I do at this time and that time. And then as I gained more confidence and experience, the space became more collegial, more collaborative and creative and quite inspiring, actually. And yeah, I think the word scaffolding comes up for me, is that, often I wanted the supervisor to tell me what to do, like if it was a difficult situation, but just with clever questioning and just holding a space for me and giving me time, would just provide certain questions or thoughts, and then I would find my own way with that. And yeah, so for me, supervision has been an incredibly important and vital and essential part. You mentioned that word. Yeah. So again, I could say a lot more, but I found it both personally and professionally incredibly rewarding, stimulating, thought-provoking, and nourishing. Yeah. So thank you. Thanks, Gugu.
Thank you both for those answers, and just noting how essential it is, not just in our professional in sharing and teaching it, but also in our personal, and just noting those tones coming in. And it leads quite nicely into my follow-up question, which is, how has supervision supported your personal practice? I know you each touched on it, mentioning a little bit of it feels like self-care, something essential that you really make time for. So curious how else it relates to your personal practice.
I'll go first this time, Alison.
Yeah, I was going to say, Barbara, you kick off this time, yeah.
Sure. Okay. So what's been interesting for me is, which I know a lot of people that I've supervised will have this thing as, okay, so this is how you do the meditation. This is how you're supposed to do this practice. And sort of often I've had, and others have had, like there's a right way to meditate. And if you don't meditate in this way, in this position, and for this length of time, then you're not doing it right. And so I'd come with these kind of things of really trying very hard and striving to get it all right and meditate and just not getting it right, because some of you who know me well know that I have had a long relationship at times with anxiety and self-doubt. And so what has been really liberating was in supervision, finding the way in which supervisors have helped me to see is how to hold the sort of foundation of a mindfulness practice and honor that, keep that at the center, but then look at what is appropriate for me at this particular time in my life and the situation that I'm faced with. And so, for example, with my thing of of working hard and sometimes being anxious or agitated or but restless, to sit down in meditation is really hard for me sometimes. And so my love of movement was incorporated and brought into my practice with my supervisor and saying, you move first. So my practice always starts with movement before I sit. And that was liberating for me. So that given permission to actually do my practice, focus on the body, focus on the breath, but do it in a way that is supportive of me. And I think that was a real gift for me. And so most of you know, my love of moving meditation and moving practice and how that informs and enriches my sitting practice. So, and that came out through supervision, you know. Thanks, Alison.
Yeah, thank you, Barbara. So I won't necessarily say too much more about kind of this one, but I too have noticed those times in supervision when I've been in a difficult place and I've taken my practice to supervision, and that bit you were speaking about, really tailoring what practice might be supportive to meet those moments. And for me, it's often being reminded around compassion-based practices is the thing that I often find my supervisor will help kind of point me to, and just the way they are with me sort of reminds me that actually I'm probably being a bit harsh on myself. And other examples that were coming up for me was one around in the UK as part of our registration with Bamba. Our supervisor signs off our sort of annual statement to say we've met good practice guidelines. And what I really love about that is it gets me to talk to my supervisor about my annual retreat and about my practice. So helping just to talk about, which area of practice might I be inclined to sort of be building at the moment, inquiring into, have some conversation afterwards. So it feels like it gives my sort of retreats something before and after. It's a bit like they find a bit more of a context, and that means that it's that sort of practice sinks a little bit deeper into my being. So I'm really enjoying that aspect. And then also at the moment I'm teaching the Mark Williams Deeper Mindfulness course, which I think a few of you here are familiar with. And taking my practice around that to my supervisor really is supporting, just deepening into those practices, getting to know them, really encouraging me to explore them more. So many different ways that I think supervision has supported my practice over the years. Yeah.
Thank you both for that. I'm hearing tones of curiosity, peeling back layers that reveal new practices that we can explore. So thank you. I'll hand over to Alison.
Well, thank you, Gugu. Yeah. And it'd be really nice to bring you in, Gugu, here. So yeah, so curious around how supervision supported your teaching or sharing of mindfulness-based practices or programs. So yeah, and then we'll move to Barbara.
Yeah, I think for me, it definitely helped me be more authentic to my voice. The different layers from individual, peer, to group really allowed for me to learn to trust my voice. So I felt that these different spaces really allowed for me to explore and learn. And every time I came out of supervision, I was hit with like a new wave of a beginner's mind to my own teaching and sharing, and almost validated. Because for me, what I found actually quite helpful was that my supervisors were in similar context. So it was also nice, and they knew me to some degree. So it was quite nice to hear their feedback and almost hear and see the mirror raised, and to then carry that back into my teaching, because I saw how it's translated to the group I'd be sharing with. The more authentic I was, the more authentic they were. And yeah, where there would be moments of shared laughter if there's a mistake, and to be okay with that. And then take the panic to supervision, and panic with the group, panic with the individual, and then come back more grounded. So that it allowed for a little bit of playfulness for me. And that's what I appreciated about supervision. Barbara?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
And I love that, being authentic and finding your own voice, and the support that supervision does with that. So I was also trying to talk about something that, but I just add just one extra, because I'm totally with you on that, Gugu, is that often would go to supervision about all the difficulties, that, oh, that didn't go well, and what about that? And I think what supervision that helped me with my teaching was really expand that and look at what was I found absolutely delightful in the training course, or the situation where I was sharing mindfulness, and why was that delightful, and how did it touch me and the people's interactions, as well as obviously what was difficult and challenging. So I really appreciated that, seeing the whole picture. And that really helped me to see the fullness of our training. And yes, there are the difficulties and the challenges, but there also are the moments of delight. And then also what helped me with my teaching was pausing before I went to supervision, and just really checking what was my intention for this particular training session. And then reflecting on what was difficult, what was delightful, what have I learned from this, and what will I take forward to the next training? So that really reflective space really kind of increased the fullness of my experience of my teaching, and so I really found that I could go into the next session with a lot more confidence of having reflected and paused and looked at what I needed to remember going forward, and what would I like to do differently. So yeah, no, thanks for that, and many more other things, but that's just like one little bit. So
yeah, really lovely to hear from you both, and also this like to come to that piece that you picked up, Barbara, when you were going through around supervision can be challenging sometimes. And, sometimes that's challenging in a way that feels helpful, and sometimes challenging in a way that doesn't feel so helpful. So, yeah, it would be lovely to hear from you something around, some of the challenges you've experienced in supervision. So maybe, Barbara, maybe you first.
Yeah, I've had some challenging moments. I'm just trying to think of one or two. I think for me, it's our own patterns come up when we teach. And as we know in our own mindfulness practice, as soon as we go to our own practice, our patterns are there just for us to see and to hold and to work with. And it certainly happens in teaching. And so taking those challenges into supervision and getting sort of feedback of where I was out of line and where I wasn't out of line, and what I should have, could have maybe considered differently. And my need of always wanting to get things always right, or sort of like, not really right, but for everyone to have a good experience. And sometimes that would blind me to certain things, and to be really called on that. And I can often, even as I said, there's a good feeling of a holding back. But because it was done in a space of care and support, and someone who really knew me, and it really helped me just to pause and to breathe and realize that we have our blind spots. They need to be challenged. This is a work of wanting to help others. And so that really helped me there. When it's not so useful, when there's a bit of a personality clash, and I think that's important, that not all supervisors and supervisees have a fit together. And can we actually then ask or bring up things that we didn't appreciate, and maybe realize that this is not the right supervisor for us, and then have the courage to actually to bring that up, and then to change supervisors. And I know in our training, we've had 1 or 2 instances when supervisors haven't matched with their supervisors, and not to take that personally, but then to really look at that and help support the supervisors and supervisors to first have a discussion, to see what it is that we can sort out. And if not, then to make the changes, which we have been able to do. I don't think always on our training, but it is something that I hold close to my heart, is to allow people to have a good experience. And if challenges come up, that we can respectfully meet them. And if we can't, then to see if we can and find different supervisors. That's important for me.
Good. Thanks, Barbara.
Yeah. I think I just resonate with what Barbara mentioned. I think one of the joys of my individual supervision was being able to choose the supervisor, and that really does make a difference, even in terms of how I soften into it. And then the challenge with group and peer supervision is definitely when the judging mind emerges, and that whisper of comparison as we sit in what's supposed to be a supportive space, and you can't help this niggling of, oh, I could have, should have. So that's been something that's challenging to work with. But what I do appreciate is the setting of the container by the supervisors, and how they always encourage this sense of kindness and this listening, and this posture of curiosity that also allows for me to soften when that challenge emerges of the judging mind whispering, and when comparison visits, and to just hold that lightly and remember that, and even them verbally reminding us that this is a learning journey for all of us, and that we can all learn from each other's experiences, has been really validating, and also allows for me to challenge myself to bring my voice and my experience more into the space, because in these groups there's different levels of experience, knowledge, theory, and it can be quite easy to get in your head about it. And the supervisors really have a way of, especially in the peer groups and the groups, they have a way of holding space for all of it, which also creates the psychological safety amongst us to feel safe enough to share deeply, and support each other and provide advice, which I really enjoy. And it opens up it's community building for me, for sure. I know this is really not speaking to the challenges, but judging mind comparison, those were the challenges.
Yeah, thank you both. Barbara, I'm going to hand over to you for our final questions.
So Gugu, you actually mentioned a little bit about being in groups, group supervision or peer supervision. So, and I know, Alison, from just having worked with you over the years, that you've also had a lot of experience with different forms of supervision, which actually most of us think it's just sometimes individual, but I really appreciate some input about your experience of the different forms, like of individual, group, and peer supervision. Alison, if you could just speak to that, and then Gugu can add 2 points to that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Gugu was already sort of saying something around group, and we've sort of been talking a bit about one-to-one. So for me, one-to-one is a place I can really sort of tailor the supervision to what my needs are. So it's a place, and I usually have an hour's supervision. So it really feels like there's plenty of time to go slowly, spacious, not take lots of things, and gradually explore. And I find that in one-to-one, my supervisor really gets to know me. So there are things I don't have to repeat. So it's a little bit like we start to get some sort of areas, some of my patterns, my ways of being that kind of get known. So I kind of find that there often becomes a real safety in that, with perhaps a caution that sometimes you can get too comfortable and safe in that space as well. And it's always good to keep challenge there. And yeah, I would really agree with what you were saying, Gugu, around groups. There's something around this sort of, the a sense of community in a group, and the learning that you can have from each other. And I'm always struck in a group how it's often not the thing I thought I was taking to learn that I come away with most. It's often what somebody else has brought, and just the range of topics and questions people bring just opens something for me that I just hadn't even thought about those things. So it kind of helps to see a kind of real range, and again, I think really helps me to see blind spots. And I love the way in a group things sort of get co-created in ways, I can't describe it, but my hands are sort of doing this. It's like it becomes a life of its own by the people together. And for me, there's something sometimes about groups where patterns. So you mentioned the comparing mind, Gugu, and I also just noticed some of my stuff from school and being with other people, and what it's like to be in groups and being quiet or not quiet, and some of those sorts of patterns get triggered in groups. So they can sometimes, I think, be challenging spaces, sort of like a little bit of an edginess to them. So I really love the combination of having both different, not necessarily all the time, but being able to incorporate both of those modes into my receiving and giving of supervision. And in terms of peer, my peer supervision is with other supervisors, and to me that's really important because they are able to, because they're already supervisors, are able to hold that space in a way that really kind of has all the benefits. And I've done that like on two supervisors together, so like one-to-one and in a group. And I think with peer supervision, structure really helps as something. So you're holding something of that framework I was sharing, something of the container, not just slipping into conversation with each other. So agreeing on intentions and structure really supports.
So thanks, Alison, for that. And I'm just looking at the time. So Gugu, I'm going to just ask you if you can answer the last question, which I know you've actually got a lot of information. Sorry, my thumb's going up. I don't know why. Thanks, if that's okay. But also just an added with the group supervision, from a cost point of view, it's more cost effective than individual supervision, which can come into the equation. And the peer supervision also doesn't have to be with other supervisors, but for teachers. I know Janine and I, when we started out many, many years ago, a lot of our supervision, there wasn't supervision for us. We actually did a lot of peer supervision. And so there's huge value in that as well. So Gugu, what I'm going to ask you is ways in which the supervision that you've received and mentoring that you've received, or as a mentor, how have you taken this to other areas of work other than just your mindfulness work?
Yeah, so for me, I feel quite strongly about this, and it was like that added, yeah, nice thing to take out of the whole experience. So my work outside of sharing mindfulness is in the civic education space with high school learners. And so very nonprofit world. And what I really found with supervision was the blend of my personal practice, the work that I do, and sharing mindfulness. So I felt supervision really supported the self-reflection part and the sense of community, because in my sphere of work, this gathering is not usual. So there's not a lot of mindfulness people in that space. So I can feel a little bit by myself. And so when I come into the Semisa group and I get to be in group supervision and peer learning supervision and individual, it creates the sense of I'm not alone, and an opportunity to blend these learnings all into one. So I found individual supervision was really useful because I would see that there would be elements that emerged from my work outside in marginalized communities that would make it really difficult to hold space when sharing mindfulness in other communities. And so in supervision, I really got to explore that and learn how to carry both, and hold those lightly and learn what to let go of. And then in the peer, there was the sense of, okay, we get to talk about the experience, we get to talk about our different perspectives from our different communities and bring it all together and take this great smoothie and bring it out into the rest of the work that I do with young people. So I really found it supportive, not just even for my personal practice and mindfulness in itself, but in my everyday work, when I'm working with young people in the high schools or when I'm working with my team of facilitators, and inspiring and carrying some of the learnings and how to hold these spaces from what I saw from my supervisor and replicate that for my team, for the young people that we work with, and then come back and also feed that back in and be like, hey, actually, this doesn't just end when we're sharing, holding space for others. This actually really works in real life, day to day. And I'm also learning how to then hold space for others in a mindful way. So that's really been the additional layer that I've been really grateful for, because I found it's helped me drop in more, and become more grounded in these different hats that I wear. So almost, one great analogy that came out from my supervision session was realizing that I am the tree and that I'm just holding these many branches. And that's it as I move through the spaces in peer, in individual, and even in groups. So that's been really, really valuable. And something I also tell my learners now, that you're the tree, you're a student and you can also, care for self and you can be an active member in your community. So it's nice to be able to take those teachings to other communities that don't have access, as I do.
Oh, thank you, Gugu. Thank you for that rich description of taking this. And I'm very aware that even though Pamela and Alison wrote this book specifically, or I don't know, but for the mindfulness community, I think it's a really gift to supervision and mentoring generally. I think it adds a whole different rich dimension, which is I think will just bring uplift supervision in general. So I'd be very interested to see how it actually plays out in supervision in general. We're going to spend just about 5 minutes in small breakout rooms, which Gugu's putting together, where I just to take a few minutes just to pause and just see how things have landed for you. If anything resonates with you, there won't be much time to talk, but just kind of a sense of connection from this large group, just to a small group, and just a sentence or two about what's landed for you, what resonated for, or a question. And then we'll come back after about 6 minutes just to have sort of time for a large group discussion, just a question or two from those who'd like to ask, or any comments that you'd like to share. So Gugu, if you could open the groups, and we'll see in about 5 or so minutes. Going into a small group. And always like, oh no, why do we have to go back so soon? Yeah. So welcome back, everyone. And I think we were just saying there's been quite a lot of talking and sharing. So just maybe just taking a time just to check in with the body, and just kind of maybe if you need to stretch or take a deep breath in. I know it's late at night. Just maybe a shake. Whatever your body needs right now. Just really tuning in and taking a little bit of a tiny space that Alison beautifully showed us in between the petals of the model, of just taking a space, just to breathe, just to settle. Right, thank you. And in the last 10 minutes or so, we'd really like to, if there is any responses that like to be brought back from the small groups, comments or questions or experiences into the larger group, we'd really welcome that. You can just put up your digital hand or unmute.
While everybody's trying to find the unmute button.
Okay, there we go, Brian, and then we'll go to Lisa. I saw Lisa's hand.
Sorry, Lisa. I just want to say a big thank you. It's fascinating. I'm not really being supervised because I'm still in medical practice, and I'm still doing lots of other things. And I use the mindfulness in there. But I can see, I'm looking back, that if it wasn't for the supervision that we had while we were being trained and shortly after we were being trained, and for the time after that process, I don't think I would have been using mindfulness in my practice or in any way now. It's a confidence building side of things, and I think it's absolutely essential. We may need it subsequently for refresher, but we certainly need it to anchor ourselves in the concept of being comfortable using the mindfulness program in the work that we do, because it's so easy to go back to the old things of what we were doing before. You know, a prescription pad instead of a mindfulness practice for depression or anxiety. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
And thank you for that beautiful word of just helping anchoring. The supervision space helps anchor. Yeah. Thank you, Brian. And lovely to have you here. And Lisa, you had your hand up.
Yes. No, just to say, I did my training so many years ago, like in the early 2000s, and the supervision wasn't even on the map, as you said. It wasn't part of my training. It was something that sort of came afterwards. And because I wasn't teaching, I never took that up. I didn't have a need to take it up. And now, as I return to working with people, more involved in mindfulness-based practices in my sharing, I just want to say that tonight is really like ignited for me. Like, of course I need to be in supervision. And that's what I want to thank you for this evening. It's brought a clarity, like that's what I need going forward. And everything that you've all shared, it just really lit something in me. So yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, great.
And I'll be in contact with you soon to find a supervisor.
Great. And I'll talk to that, because there is wonderful things coming up. We're going to be a list of all the supervisors on the website and things. So yeah, great. Thank you. Anything else? Oh, I can see Eva. Thank you.
Something else that also came up while we were sharing is how supervision is sort of nested in, like especially with us in EMISA, I feel like every session we have, there's like, even it just, I was with Lisa and Michael, and we were sharing and going like how we have peer-to-peer supervision as well. And me and my co-teacher Tracy often debrief afterwards, and we have this sort of inbuilt supervision. And obviously with you, Barbara, and Googs, when we were teaching earlier in the year, like having our little supervision session afterwards. So it's quite lovely how it's also not just these sort of 1 hour or 45-minute sessions, but also these nested layers of supervision that happen on all the different levels. So it just sort of came to mind that that's sort of baked in from the beginning, which is quite lovely.
I love that verse of nesting. And also, we always like to see that there are layers of support and layers of supervision through our training, provided in small groups and larger groups in individuals. So there's these layers of sort of nested. I just love that sort of concept of nesting. Yeah, thank you, Eva. And yeah, those times of supervision are delightful. I mean, I had the privilege of working with Eva and Gugu earlier on, and we used to have all our little mini supervision sessions along the way. Yeah. Sarah, was your hand up or was it down or no? Okay, great. Thank you. Right, is there any last, we've got time for one more comment or addition or question? Okay, great. So what I'm going to do now is just talk a little bit about the way going forward, especially Lisa, as you said, it sparked something, and also Brian, you mentioned, so I'm going to try and share screen again and see if I get it right this time. And yes, I did. And so looking at the future plans for mindfulness-based supervision and mentoring within EMISA, for us, it's really important as we're developing the training pathway, which we've started our first one of sharing mindfulness in context, and we'll be looking at how we deepen that, and then how we deepen our personal practice, and then moving on to how to teach a mindfulness-based intervention. There'll be ongoing training of supervisors and mentors, and also giving them support in the process while they're supporting people going through the training. And for us, it's really important that the supervising and mentoring is not only available to people within the training, like Brian, you were mentioning it while you were on the training program, but that its supervision and mentoring is available to anyone that's been through any of our training. And I personally, and I know Alison and other people can speak to it, that's almost as or more important afterwards, because you don't have that same experience of being in a training program together with a whole lot of other participants. So sometimes you can feel isolated outside of a training program, and so they're going to be they will be available for you to be supervised or to have a mentor group. And this will be, we're in the process of getting a page on our MISA website where we're going to be having a list of all the supervisors and mentors and their contact details. So we won't be, you will contact, if you want to have supervision or mentoring, you'll contact the supervisor and mentor of your choice and directly, and set up a time and space for yourself with that. So that's just just the way we're going with that. Yeah, so with that, and I'm going to hand over to Alison to close us for the evening. And we'll be in touch with the details of the book, details of the webpage, and if you've got any other further questions, please feel to contact me directly. If you don't have my email address, Lynn will certainly have it, and you all know how to get hold of Lynn. And yeah, really, really a big thank you for your time this evening and your participation. And a thank you to Alison for being here. A thank you for Pamela to be here with us as well. And also to Gugu. And also thank you to Janine and Lynn from a Misa's point of view for all the work that you do to make it possible for us to do our work. And yeah, thank you for all the wonderful faces that I see from over the years. It's been a real delight being with you. So yeah, thank you from me, and handing over to Alison to take us out for the evening in a little practice.
Yeah, I'd just like to add my final thanks to all of you, and to Gugu and Barbara for supporting me being here this evening. And somebody needs to thank Barbara for all the work she's been doing around supervision with Amisa, and really the sort of celebration and really singing the song of supervision. So yeah, thank you, Barbara. So let's just take a little moment to pause. Eyes might want to close, they may want to remain open. Might just want to make a connection with the body in some way, perhaps through the feet or the seat or somewhere else in the body. I'm just seeing what's resonating with us right now. And there may be something around supervision that's being ignited, feels alive. May even have that sense of something we'd like to take forward. Forming of an intention. Just taking a brief moment to see what you're leaving with, what you take away with you. And that might be more just something in the body, emotions, maybe more of an action to take forward, an insight. We're just letting this short reflection come towards an end, and gradually, if your eyes are closed, letting them open. If they're already open, just maybe lifting the gaze. And Gugu invited us as we were first arriving in our opening practice, just to take a look around the screen and connect with this community that we've spent some time with. Maybe people you know, people you don't, people you spoke with in a breakout room. Maybe something around a shared endeavor around our mindfulness practice and bringing this work into the world. So thanking you all for your time, generously given. And I won't keep you, because often I think it's 8 for us in the UK. I think you're 9, so it's getting pretty late. And hope to meet some of you again, and hope our paths will cross.